Okay, today I'm going to be drawing Trump and his media circus. And this is because I have not been the most negative about Trump among the cartoonists. And it seems to me that the media frenzy is pretty darn crazy, particularly with regard to his campaign manager grabbing the reporter and being charged with battery. So I'm going to draw a simple name-calling cartoon today that is media bashing. And here's what we've got. So I took one of these old cartoons of mine with a bunch of media, and they're chasing after something. And I found a whole lot of use for this general media chasing after something image, and so this is another one. So I'm going to make all of these guys that I lifted from my earlier cartoon and redraw them as clowns, media clowns, and then here's Donald Trump over here, reaction shot. And that's basically all it is. It's a name-calling cartoon, which surprisingly, large percentage of editorial cartoons are nothing but name-calling cartoons. You know, the big spate of Trump cartoons with Trump as Godzilla or Trump as Hitler, basically just name-calling cartoons. So today we have a media bashing name-calling cartoon. Anyway, I would appreciate if you would all chat and have some comments for me so that I've got some reason to keep talking constantly through the source of this like some kind of nutty street person. Flint water today. I'm ready to roll. And if you haven't been here before, please follow me. I appreciate the follow. You just double check to make sure that the window's working on Cagle.com. So I think everything is good. Cagle.com's looking okay. We be cool. All right. I need my old man glasses. So Trump is going to be here. This is reaction shot. And Trump is basically the gag on the right because you don't understand why these guys are clowns until you see them in the context of Trump. So Trump is the explainer gag. So it's a name-calling cartoon, and the gag is explainer because you end up with Trump explaining why they're clowns. That's the mechanics of it. You read a cartoon left to right, you put the gag at the right, or the explainer that works like a gag. So I need to come up with a Trump over here. This is observing Trump. Excuse me. I should be here this afternoon for probably 3 or 4 hours getting this done, because I am going to redraw all of these guys. Just using the previous cartoon as a layout here. And I printed it in a lighter gray because I'm going to draw on top of these to get the clown stuff working. I thought about adding a little bit of clown nose and stuff to Trump over here, and I think I'm leaning against that because there have been so many Trump clowns before, so many cartoons about the clown car when there were 17 Republican candidates. I don't think I quite want to repeat that, and I would like to make a different point with this cartoon, which is the media bashing point. So again, don't hesitate to comment. I have no comments yet. And excuse me. as I sketch this up, I need to keep in mind keeping him in the same scale as the clown reporters. When you draw something new, it's always a temptation to draw it too big. And he needs to come down a little bit. So you folks are quiet and lurking. Excuse me just a second, right back. Alrighty, I'm back. Not too happy with the way Trump is laying out. I'm going to try him again. Just a simple side view Trump. I want him to be that tall. You folks are so quiet. If you hear some banging in the background, that's my neighbor building a house. Oh, Siroip, you followed me. Thank you so much. That's very nice. I think I might not have my stats working properly here. Trump has some funny width, and he's got some funny stuff happening with his neck when he's in side view. Bottom of the neck goes that way. Sirope. Sorry. I mispronounced your name, Cyril. I'm going to need to do a little more work on his face to be happy with it. I haven't quite developed a Trump template that I'm happy with like I have with Obama, George W. Bush, Hillary. Still not quite happy with my Hillary. Folks are so quiet. I haven't been drawing as many cartoons as I need to because I've been distracted with business stuff. And then tomorrow I'm going to have to do the quarterly royalty reports for all the artists. That'll probably knock me out for a couple of days over the weekend. Kiddle Pals writes, it's quite interesting and educational to watch another cartoonist work while I am making my own editorial cartoon ready for print. So, Kiddle Pal, who are you? Do I know you? Where do your editorial cartoons run? Kiddle Pal, I think I'm the only editorial cartoonist who's doing the live streaming. Do you know of anybody else? I haven't discovered anybody else. Well, let's see if I'm happy with this. I don't have good profile views of Donald Trump. I noticed that a lot of cartoonists draw him in rather strange ways that don't seem to me to be close to what he looks like. I think that's a little bit better. His nose doesn't drop down, it comes out pretty straight. Fascinating to me to see all of the angry Trump opposition coming from just about every kind of institution, certainly all the media institutions, looking for any opportunity to pounce on him over any ridiculous little thing like that battery charge against his campaign manager. So all you have to do is touch somebody who's one of these anti-Trump groups. That's enough to make a battery charge. Battery charge with a Possible 1-year prison sentence. For the campaign manager bullying his way between Trump and a reporter who was grabbing Trump. Ridiculous. But media loves it. So the reason for my my name calling cartoon today. Kiddo Palace writes, "No, I'm from Iceland and work for the oldest newspaper there called Morgunblaðið. Morning paper. I've not seen other cartoonists streaming, but I like your stream a lot. First time catching you live. It's 9:30 p.m. over here." Hey, cool. So Kiddo Pals, you must follow. Need for you to follow. And I'd like to see your work. I don't think I am familiar with any cartoonists in Iceland. Although I should say, whenever I see stuff on Iceland looks like a pretty interesting, nice place. Okay, now I need to make these people into clowns. And I know that I'm going to want them all to have clown noses, so I can start there. And I'm going to want to have some kind of crazy eye stuff going on. So let's think about crazy eyes. And let's see, a little bit of crazy hair. This is a girl clown. Let's give her a silly clown wig like this. Gonna need some clown clothes. I think he'll need a little more goofy habitat this way. Let's have a little bit of a derby on that one. Right, looking kind of clowny. Their shoes can be a little bigger. Just to note where these shoes are. Now this one I think can have a clown collar. Bit of a hat. Khalifa, nice to see you back here. Where do you draw the line, pun intended, on name-calling in cartoons, or is it all okay? Name-calling cartoons are just a genre of cartoons. I think it's the biggest genre of editorial cartoons. In most cartoons you can classify as what kind of gag it is, and I think the most common gag is name-calling. And, name-calling isn't just as simple as name-calling. I mean, here I'm saying the media is acting like a bunch of jerks with respect to how they cover Donald Trump. So there's a point to it, but when you boil it down, how are you making that point? I'm just making a name-calling cartoon. So not really drawing any lines here, but just to use a standard format to make a point. The point is, media annoys me today, so this is how I express myself. Today it's a name-calling cartoon. Oh, I got some technical fixes done since my last streaming. I think we've got the frame freezing problem fixed, and we should have a little bit better quality on everything. So hopefully all will be well. All will be better than it has been. All right. She could actually have this guy. She can have another goofy tall hat. That's probably better. Just because I have space for it there. That one has a bouncing off his head hat. DeWeefa writes, name-calling in cartoons is a very interesting aspect of cartooning, so I appreciate your thoughts on the topic. I think all those Trump as Hitler and Trump as Godzilla cartoons are just nothing but name-calling. Most cartoons are name-calling. Most Trump cartoons are name-calling. And unless you have some larger point to make, which is, in this context, I do not respect the media for how they are treating Trump, then name-calling cartoons are pretty weak. And I think you see that more when they're repeated, as they're repeated with Trump, but as they're repeated, for example, with George W. Bush over the years, and so many cartoonists drew him as a monkey, and then he just always became a monkey. I think that's getting a little lazy. So there's an element of laziness to name-calling cartoons. Kitty Pals writes, of course I follow. I could probably send some examples of my work. There's not a lot of media platforms for cartoons over here, but the amount of cartoonists is increasing, which is great. I think there are about 7 professional editorial or newspaper cartoonists in Iceland. I am by far the youngest. I'm 24. I've been doing it part-time for the same paper since I was 18. Oh, that's great. 7 newspapers in Iceland, and that's like Uh, 3 times as many as we've got in California. Twice as many as we've got in California. Well, more than we've got in California. So I start counting them in my head. Okay. How does this look? Trump could be a little bit smaller. But I think I'm ready to go to the finished art here. The next cartoon I draw after this one, which I may do tomorrow, is going to be a lemmings cartoon. So you know the lemmings all run off the cliff like this. And they fall off the cliff. And so I was going to make GOP elephants all falling off the lemmings cliff. And a couple of them here are Trump and Cruz, who are yelling at each other obscenities before they get off the cliff with all the other Republican elephants. So that'll be the next cartoon, another lemmings cartoon. Lemmings cartoons are a standard for editorial cartoonists. We all draw cartoons about lemmings. Keto Pals writes, some papers have 2 or 3 cartoonists, not so many big papers. 2 or 3 cartoonists, that's like hearkening back to the 50s. Okay. Finished art. I'm standing up to grab my vellum. So we were planning on doing a podcast, which would be these 6-hour videos that I do for my cartoons, boiled down to 15 minutes with lots of fast forward, which makes me look like a genius. And it's been more trouble than we expected, because to edit this stuff, you gotta sit through friggin' 6 hours. So if you give me a bunch more comments, you'll keep me talking. It's been interesting to me to see that I think there are no pro-Trump editorial cartoonists. And it's just about as difficult to find a pro-Trump columnist. Which just shows how out of touch the media is with the electorate. I think the Republicans are so invested in having their candidates go along with this long list of all the positions on every issue that you're supposed to accept as a Republican. So the fact that Trump doesn't go along with everything in the platform like everybody else does, more or less, makes him very difficult to swallow. Also, the fact that he hasn't built up dependence on the Republican community such that he threatens to come into Washington and appoint a bunch of people to fill up all the government that are not on the list of regular people that the Republicans have queued up and waiting to take all those positions, which I find delightful. So, DeWeeva writes, Lemmings falling off the cliff is a myth manufactured by Disney animal films, but using the lemmings falling off the cliff still communicates to many because of how familiar most are with the image. So that doesn't really happen. I don't care whether it happens or not. It's just a metaphor. Most of my metaphors are not things that actually happen. But I thought it happened. I'm guessing that I'm going to be doing a lot of fiddling with my Trump that I'm not too happy with. Maybe not. Maybe that's not bad. I like this area above Trump's ears where he's obviously much heavier in the hair goop than he is on other parts of his hair. I think Trump's hair is pretty do-it-yourself because it has a feeling to it of being the silliest looking in places that he can't really see, like the back of his head, where sometimes his hair comes down in a kind of a triangle V shape that comes down to a point in the back middle of his head, which is kind of crazy, but you know he never sees it because it's on the back of his head. Cash Override writes, I had a comic idea, a picture of Trump as a used car salesman with a bunch of junker cars with America written on them. Okay, now understand, Cash Override, that inherent is in your cartoon idea is the idea that I have to draw a whole bunch of cars that have the word America on them. And I say as I'm drawing a crowd scene of clowns, but the simpler a cartoon can be and the less you have a bunch of things, the better a cartoon it is. I get some pretty darn ridiculous cartoon ideas. I got a voicemail cartoon idea today that was just terrible, and I wonder if I can play it through OBS. Guys, let me know if you can hear this this voice message that I have from my my telephone system of a reader calling in with a cartoon idea. Just I get lots of these. It's typical for me. But let's see if this plays. So did that phone message play or not? I don't have a speaker set up to hear, because then I'd get feedback. Tell me, did you hear that message? Nope, you heard nothing? Oh, well, it was pretty crazy. Alright, I'm going to turn on my speaker and see if I can play it. You can hear it through the speaker. Ready? Here goes.
Just wanted to leave a comment regarding a suggestion for a cartoon with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Payday Debbie, sucking off everyone in sight, line after line of payday loan and for-profit prisons with lesions, syphilitic lesions all over her entire body, popping out dollar bills.
That is typical of what reader cartoon ideas are like. Terrible cartoon ideas. But that one was just so bad I had to play it for you. You did hear that. Alright, now I know how to play my phone messages over OBS. More often people will email me cartoon ideas, and they almost always involve crowd scenes. Although the crowd scene of sucking off lines of special interests while covered in syphilitic lesions that spout dollar bills. That idea was so good to that gal that she had to call me to give me that idea. I was thinking of putting up a section on the website of reader suggestions for cartoons, and they're of the status of they're all about as bad as that one, although some of them are not as nasty. And the people that I work with, my editor and my tech guy, they say, no, that's insulting to the readers. You don't want to post something that makes fun of your readers. That's just going to make people mad. So I never did it. Even though it's an ongoing parade of horrible cartoon ideas that just make you make your eyes pop out. In that case, I guess it makes your ears pop out, huh? Trump needed the pinstripe suit. Kiddo Pals writes, what kind of pencil are you using? Soft one? No, this is a 4H, so very hard. should probably, I know that this little robot thing from Twitch is something that I should be using, but I have not gotten to the habit of getting it set up and putting in all the standard stuff that I should for it. But, you know, what kind of pencil are you using? That kind of stuff should be up in a frequently asked questions kind of section. And I know the robot is the way of doing that on Twitch. I just one step at a time. I'm getting better at this. I guess that Trump's okay. You don't wonder who that is, huh? And he's looking appropriately disgusted at the clowns. I might want to make the clowns a little bit bigger, but I'll do that or Trump a little bit smaller. I'll do that in Photoshop, because I can do that at the end and get something that I'm comfortable with. He's looking a little bit bigger than the clowns over here to his left, and needs a little bit of adjustment. That's okay. It's an easy one. So tomorrow, unless I come up with a better idea, I'm going to draw the lemmings. I should mention too that I'm going to have to take a break of about 10-15 minutes to scan this before I do the color. So probably in about 40 minutes, when I'm finished with these clowns, okay. Alright, there's our Trump. I like this kind of scowling, fishy look that he gets. I think it's funny. Fancy Schmancy TV. Nice to see you here. I should move myself down a little bit. I'm covering up some of the chat, aren't I? Yeah, it's a little better. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay. Hits need to be a little bit better, different shapes to fit into the crowd when they're made into clowns. The Media Circus. Oh, Comey. Nice to see you here. Hey, Daryl, are you going to draw something about that ex-Breitbart journalist that got grabbed by Donald's chief of staff? Actually, that's what I'm drawing right now, Comey. That chief of staff incident inspired me to do a general media bashing cartoon. So I'm lashing out by calling the media a bunch of clowns. Perhaps not as specifically addressing that incident as I could be, but clowns have more legs. That story, don't know that it has such legs. Nice to see you here, Okomi. Now, I see that you can look at this cartoon and not know that it addresses that event. Excuse me as I whip my head around to check all these monitors around me. I may put some polka dots and stuff on them, but I'm afraid that if I do that while I'm doing the line art instead of later when I do the color, it's going to be too complex. In color, I can do it more subtly. I can get away with some other silly texture stuff going on. I notice as I watch the other streams on Twitch Creative that most of the people in Creative do not make that much of an effort to talk constantly. Clowns wear looser fitting clothes than regular folks. Fancy Schmancy TV writes, when I stream, I'm on and off with conversation. So what is your work like, Fancy Schmancy? Are you streaming in Creative or are you streaming video games? I read about how Twitch is expanding the streaming to include cooking, which seems kinda reasonable, actually. Comey writes, I don't know if I'm retarded, but I couldn't find any other cartoonist on Twitch. Well, you know, they have plenty of people doing the manga, anime kind of drawings. But, don't know any other editorial cartoonists. Alright, here's the camera lens. So Fancy Schmancy does a little bit of gaming, mostly Creative, and tattoo style art. There are some tattoo artists on Twitch Creative, aren't there? I haven't watched them, but I've heard reference to them. Fancy Schmancy suggests at Merkworks and at Enzo Comics. Take a look. I should be better about hosting other people's streams when I'm done. That said, I don't have enough people watching that it makes much difference. In case you're wondering about all the clunking, if you can hear that, it's a neighbor building a house. My very noisy neighbor. I never drew a cartoon about the terror attacks in Brussels. And I think I was just feeling kind of weary, and I wasn't real motivated to draw on yet another terrorist attack. But that was not the attitude of my colleagues, and I'm getting all these emails about please contribute to our cartoon, to our big exhibition that supports our poor neighbors in Brussels. And I usually like to contribute to things and feel like I'm part of the deal, but I didn't draw anything on that. If I was working at a daily paper, I would have had to. And I can tell you, I think it would have been a lousy cartoon. Tear in the eye. The Yahtzee for the Brussels attack was the mannequin piss, the peeing statue in Brussels, and he's got tears squirting out of his eyes just as he has his peeing, which is cute. If I'd have thought of that, I might have drawn it, but I would have drawn it with the realization that other people were probably going to draw it too. So, unless I get a better idea tomorrow, it shall be the lemmings, Republican lemmings. Sorry to lose you, Fancy Smancy, but thank you for stopping by. Comey writes, this cartoon makes me think about what Kerry said about the election campaign descending to embarrassment. Yeah. The people who like this cartoon will look at it and say, yeah, that's what they're like, bastards. People who don't like it will say, why are they all clowns? I don't get it. I get a lot of that. I don't get it. So, folks, you've gone quiet. And it's been a long time since I've had a new follower. I think I'm going to need to lose that little camera there. Okay. This needs a camera in front of her head. Yeah, the clowns are too small in comparison to Trump. Trump is going to have to come down. So I'll do that in Photoshop. I do lots of cartoons with this general mob of media. I just I like it, and it lends itself to making lots of statements on the media. This little hat. Sorry for not drawing more lately. I've been just consumed with other work. I plan to start doing some more advertising work in the mix. Which is unusual for editorial cartoonists. Not only do editorial cartoonists not live stream, but they tend not to do freelance ad work, which was most of my career before I got into editorial cartooning. Am I drawing too low? Does this need to come out a little bit more that way? It's probably better. Could be a little bit more. Well, yeah, it's okay. Oh! A new follower. I refuse this. Nice to see you here. I refuse this. Okomi writes, can we see your tablet while you're coloring this cartoon today? Yeah, on my tablet I'm drawing, I've got a bunch of Trump from Google Images that I'm just using it for when I was drawing Trump. Keep him in mind. But yeah, when I do the color, I'll show the monitor view. but not much going on the tablet right now. The action is all on the pencil. Clown cartoons are quite an editorial cartooning staple. I'll bet you probably get 1,000 clown cartoons if you type the word clown into politicalcartoons.com. Kiddo Pals writes, what made you want to become a political cartoonist? Well, I don't think there's any better job in the world. I started off as an illustrator. And I did cartoon illustrations. I worked for the Muppets for about 20 years. And I did lots of advertising and product design. And part of what I did, since I had worked for the Muppets so much, I got to know the toy companies. And so I worked with a lot of the same toy companies, designing toys and inventing toys. And I sold a doll line to Hasbro Kenner, which was a big score. It allowed me not to have to work for a while. So, what does a cartoonist do when he doesn't have to work for a while? You do cartoon work that doesn't pay anything, that's more rewarding than the stuff that pays. So, I did syndicated comic for Tribune Media Services, which did not perform very well. But one of my newspapers was a newspaper in Hawaii, called me up and said, "Hey, Daryl, we run your true cartoons. How would you like to be our editorial cartoonist in Hawaii?" And I said, cool. I don't think there are many calls like that. So, for the next 5 years, I worked for this weekly newspaper in Hawaii, pretending to be a local Hawaiian cartoonist. And that was fun. And then they had a newspaper war in Hawaii, and I was hired away by the Honolulu Advertiser, which was the Gannett Morning Daily, the biggest paper there at that time. And the Honolulu Advertiser ended up going out of business. And so I lost that gig, but while I was there, having had my bad experience with Tribune Media Services, I called some of my buddies who we would commiserate together about how much we didn't like syndicates, and decided to hire my own salesman and sell my own editorial cartoons as a package with my very talented buddies who didn't like syndicates. And that's how Cagle Cartoons started. And what was so cool about doing that then, this is a terrible business to try to get into, but at that time, that was in the year 2000, and the competing syndicates, who were all working as packages and were suffering from about 30 years of competition driving the prices down to nothing. They were all delivering cartoons through postal mail, not using email, no download sites. This is the year 2000, so they're kind of late to the game. And so when I came in, I did email delivery, and I had a download site, and my competitors didn't have that. So not only did we have great content and a cheap price, we had better customer service and fresher cartoons. So I was able to make some quick inroads. Between 2001 and 2004, we picked up about 500 newspapers, which is just unheard of in this stodgy business. Since then, we ended up with about 850, which seems to be a ceiling. It's hard to get beyond that. That includes about half of America's daily paid circulation newspapers. There are about 1,400 American daily paid circulation newspapers. So we're in just about half, and the rest of that 850 are magazines or websites. Don't have a lot of website clients, but we've got 2 or 3 dozen, and got some nice non-traditional sites. We've got some good website clients. You see our cartoons on a bunch of the major news sites around The Week, We're on foxnews.com. Townhall.com. But I love being an editorial cartoonist. That said, you don't go into editorial cartooning to make a good living. It pays badly. So I'm going to start doing a bit more advertising work. Get back to my roots a little bit. So I can make more of a living doing that, even though I'm the owner of the syndicate, and that's not what the cartoonists want to hear. But the easiest way for me to bump up the income is to do some freelance work. So that's the plan. If I get some jobs that I can stream here on Twitch where the client doesn't have a confidentiality agreement that keeps me from doing that, I will do it. You'll probably see me doing some ad jobs on Twitch before too long, which is kind of a fun departure. I notice that the discussion on Twitch tends to be more in the nature of drawing and how-to, less of a political discussion. So it probably won't make too much difference to what I do here. Dawifa writes, how has the advertising illustration changed since you were last there? Oh, well, such changes. When I was 21, 1977, I was 21, I moved to Manhattan because in those days there was no Federal Express and there were no fax machines. And if you wanted to be an illustrator, you had to live close to Manhattan where all the ad agencies were, like in Mad Men. I watched Mad Men and I came late to it. I came there in 1978. But, and they ended their series in 1970. But that said, oh, it's so familiar, and it wasn't that different in 1978 than it was in 1970 where they ended up. And they'd had some scenes in other ad agencies, like Gray Advertising, I remember. I did a bunch of work for Gray, and those were the offices. They were really quite accurate. Anyway, so back in those days, we did a lot with messengers. And I would have messengers coming to the door of my little apartment all the time because, I know what they're giving me. It's move Kermit's hand a little bit. Give Kermit an extra point on his collar. Make sure his eyes are round, or make this guy move a little bit that way. You've got all of the wrinkles on their pants pointing at their groins. You can't have that. So, the ridiculous junk that art directors want you to do. Each one of those ridiculous things required another trip by the messenger. And so I looked so important in those days. I had the messenger coming to my apartment like sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. was so exciting. And I had girlfriends, and the girlfriends would be so impressed. Oh, a steady stream of messengers at your door is so important. So, then we got fax machines, which were in the form of these rickety things that smelled like ammonia. They went were very slow and were expensive as all hell. And when I first got a fax machine, I made a deal with the Muppets, who were sending me a messenger at least once a day. You know, I told the Muppets, these messengers are expensive. Wouldn't it be nice if I had a fax machine and you can say, move Kermit's hand a little bit this way, not have to send a messenger? And they said, oh, yes, Daryl, it's very exciting. They had a fax machine the size of a refrigerator. MAGA 2016 Mud Surfigs. Nice to see you here, Mud Surfigs, although I don't understand MAGA 2016. I'm sure it means something to you. So I made this deal with the Muppets for, hey, you're paying what, like $50 for the messenger to come here? What if for only $20 you I charge you $20 for a fax, and then you save $30 over the messenger? Oh, what a deal! I was the only cartoonist who had a fax, so it's not like there was any competition on that price. And so for a number of years, I was getting $20 a fax from the Muppets, and they sent and received a lot of faxes. So I was doing great. The faxes were like the best business decision I ever made. Chook, chook, chook. Smelling like ammonia. $20. Woo! That's in 1979. And then when Federal Express came in, Federal Express changed everything because you didn't have to live in New York anymore. You could live anywhere. Kitty Pals writes, I noticed you sad girlfriends, plural. Were you popular with the girls because of your cartoons? No, I don't think girls care about cartoons, but they do care about how important you look because of all those messengers coming to the door. But alas, what ended up happening was that the need for living in New York was gone, and not only the illustrators, but the whole friggin' notion of needing to be in Manhattan for this creative community for publishing and advertising just disappeared, and people stopped caring about it. And we used to be able to walk around on portfolio days and visit art directors and show my portfolio, and people would see you and talk to you. But with fax machines and Federal Express and other ways of doing things, now certainly with the internet, they don't want to see you anymore. You are an annoyance. They have too many things to do to chat with random illustrators who want to come by and show their portfolio. So it was a bygone era, and some aspects of it were delightful, like being able to walk around and show your portfolio and talk to all the art directors and have them all talk to you. there was a cost and exclusivity, I think, to living in Manhattan and being available to do that kind of thing that kept the numbers down and allowed them to want to keep doing it. But once they didn't have to do it, boy, they certainly quit wanting to see all of us nice illustrators like they used to. And now, you better have your portfolio on the web. Nobody wants to talk to you until they're ready to assign a job. And there are a lot less jobs now than there were in my earlier advertising days, because stock has so eaten into the illustration and photography business. And agencies like to go to the stock houses, and calming watching me do my beautiful crosshatch, writes Keto Pals. Ooh. So there's just a lot less original work being commissioned, and a lot of the areas that cartoonists used to rely on, like magazine gag cartoons and greeting cards, they have just been decimated by the internet. Greeting cards don't sell like they used to, so they're not buying the greeting cards. The greeting cards aren't paying the royalties for the cartoonists to make a living. The toy industry that I used to specialize in was crushed by modern marketing. Toys R Us used to have 35,000 SKUs, separate different products, and now I think they have probably about 10,000, which means there's a lot less development work and art going on, and the art that's going on is a lot of licenses that come out of Hollywood and stuff that doesn't lend itself to original design, which is why I stopped doing the toy inventing. There were just fewer toy inventions being accepted, or else they were split royalties with a Hollywood licensor. So, by and large now, it's easier that you can live wherever you want and don't have to be in Manhattan and have messengers, but it's harder because there's less commissions of original art being made as people rely on all this stockhouse stuff. And so many of our outlets, like the greeting cards and the greeting cards and gag cartoons, all nature of magazines, it's just doesn't exist anymore. Greeting card artists used to have the gag cartoon artists used to have a day of the week where they would go around and show their cartoons to the different clients in Manhattan. Now it's gotten down to about the point where there's the New Yorker, and that's it. All those other magazines you would show your cartoons to after you showed them to the New Yorker, which paid the most. They just aren't in the market anymore. Very frustrating. So, today you market yourself differently. There's less work to go around. But you can live anywhere, and you have a lot more different kinds of opportunities. I don't think someone like me doing both advertising work and editorial cartoons, that's odd, and I don't think editorial cartoonists ever were motivated to do much illustration. I just come at it from a different background. So, very long, extensive answer to your short, simple question, huh? I do miss Manhattan in those days. There's no real going back because that creative community and the necessity of being there has just changed everything. People aren't there that used to be there. And there was a wonderful sense of community. I remember first joining the Society of Illustrators in Manhattan, and that was so exciting for a young illustrator, Darryl. And I would go there for they had a figure drawing night at the Society of Illustrators, and it would be all these great illustrators sitting around drawing from the nude model. And I'd go in and I'd take my seat with them, new member of the club. And I was used to, in high school and college, being the best guy in figure drawing class. Big fish in small pond. But get out of college, move to New York, I was not the best kid in the figure drawing class at the Society of Illustrators. I was the weakest, and boy, it is a great, wonderful motivator to be in a room full of great artists doing the same thing that you're doing, drawing the same model in the same position, and boy, outdrawing you. That's a wonderful motivator and a wonderful lesson that I didn't get in college when I was the best kid in class. It gives you a good dose of humility that many art students could use coming out of college. DeWeefer writes, will you do magazine ads? I don't know. See what comes up. I'm just starting to send out some mailers and get back into it a bit. I'm just going to do a little bit of stuff here and there that should pay enough to get my income back to where it should be. And you should see me doing some of those jobs here in the live stream. Advertising people tend to be pretty secretive. We'll see how many of them will let me draw their job in the live stream. I think more likely illustration job for a magazine or something would be something they wouldn't object to. All right, Trump and the media circus. Trump is going to come down in size just a little skosh. In case you're wondering, I've got a piece of sandpaper over here to my right that I use to chisel point my pencil occasionally. Okay, I think what's going to happen here is I'm going to... Mud Surfigs writes, stream is RIP? I don't know, is it? Oh, I see it spinning over here. Let's try refreshing the page. See if the stream is RIP. Don't think it is. But I did have a spinning wheel over there. Okay, spins again. No, I'm still streaming. Yeah, I'll mention that over here. I just restarted the stream there. See if that did something to help. Okay, I'm going to color this now, and I'm going to need to scan it and go off for a few minutes, so bear with me. I'm going to bring up the timer, and when I come back we should have this all in the computer ready to color. Just to let you know, I'm still scanning here, and I should be back in just a few minutes working on this in Photoshop. So see you in just a second.